Now, let me take you back to our other big story of the day, and I spoke a little about it before we heard from Theo, and that is the big rise in interest rates that came from the Bank of England in pursuit of their mandate to defeat inflation. My first guest sitting here in the studio with me, I'm delighted to say, is an old friend. That's Lettice Bromovsky, who is a political commentator. But I didn't know, as I said to you when you came in and sat down, formerly with the Institute of Economic Affairs. So this is very much your bag as well, as speaking on the politics of it. When you heard that that was the decision, it had been widely flagged that it was likely to be another increase, but the scale of the increase, were you surprised? Were you shocked?
I'm going to say that, no, I wasn't particularly shocked. As you say, this had been sort of forecast for a while that we would have to have this steep increase, particularly because for so many months last year, they refused to increase those interest rates. It's been a particularly interesting week in terms of forecasting, I'll say. And when the IMF came out earlier this week with their forecasting results that the UK would have the lowest growth in the G7, I think there's a particularly dangerous aura around some of the IMF's forecasting, in sense that it becomes a rather self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes. The more you read the news and you hear things like, oh, you know, we're going down this dark tunnel, everything's going to go wrong, and the more people hear that, the less likely they're going to be to think, oh, I'll book that holiday this summer, or maybe I'll just wait till next year now when prices might be better, the forecast might be better, or even just I won't buy that new coat, or the new pair of shoes. It's also important to note that the IMF has been wrong before on some of their forecasting. Namely, just last year in July, they were predicting that the UK would only grow by 3.2%. Yeah. They then changed that again in October to 3.6%, and then just this week they've come out and said actually it's 4.1%. So that's a 1% change over the last 6 months.
The Bank of England have been wrong as well, and they chop and change. But rather than the scale of the rise, I think the two things that surprised me most were that I thought the direction of travel for inflation was downward, and it was beginning to show some signs of progress. And then when Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, said, I think there will still be a recession, but I think it will be shorter-lived and it may well be shallower. And if there's one thing, as you said there, with your brilliant examples of deferred spending and reduced demand, that's going to deepen the recession and make it last longer, it is exactly that. If we don't have money to spend on goods and services, then economic activity will slow. That, for me, is the nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to have a little bit more in your back pocket. And really, it comes back to the age-old thing that seems like a stuck record of we do need to lower taxes so people do feel like they have a little bit more in their back pocket. In terms of interest rates, one of the issues that we're seeing for many people is that this is impacting their mortgages. So if your mortgage is going up so much, all those smaller things that the government is doing to help with your energy bills, help with the cost of living, it sort of just cancels that out, and it means that people aren't being helped in any way at all. Particularly for younger people trying to get on the property ladder at the moment, we've had about a decade of very strictly controlled mortgage lending. And actually, the Bank of England came out and said in December they had only given out 35,000 mortgages. This was down 23% from November. So we are seeing it being even more tightly controlled at the moment. And I think that getting on the property ladder is one prime example of where we can really expand the economy. People will be investing in that house, investing not only on the interior, you know, you might not be buying all of your furniture from IKEA, but maybe from the local businesses, but also investing in the community. If you decide to set up shop there, it changes a lot.
Is there also an issue here, and we've talked about this before when you've been kind enough to join me on the programme, about the risk of intergenerational tension, in the sense that these rates is going to make it even more difficult for people in your generation to enjoy what my generation enjoyed for a long time, and that was relatively easy access to mortgage funding, to buy our own property, to get on to that ladder, as it were. It is clearly going to be much more difficult for your generation going forward. Are you fearful about the social consequences of that?
I'm not so fearful about the social consequences of it. I think on the whole, across generations, mortgage increases or just trying to get on the property ladder is going to be an issue for everyone. I do fully understand, though, the frustration that younger generations feel, that we are constantly being cast out or the second ones to be looked at when it comes around to budgets and things like that. It's very difficult. I mean, it was only last December that it was 6% of 18 to 25-year-olds said they would vote Conservative.
Sure.
That's an entire wipeout of a generation that will be voting Conservative. Conservatives really need to change that around. But I'm not seeing much from any of the political parties in the way of really going to support these younger generations. So, and there is the tensions of 2022, which is a discourse I hope we can leave behind, which was saying that the young generations can't get on.
We have to leave it there. But
Okay.
do come back and we'll talk about that again, because I think it is a rich and lively subject, not only for oldies like me, but for people like you in the younger generations. Lettice Bromovsky, great to see you again. Thank you very, very much indeed.